I'm Hilary Helstein, and I'm the director of the Los Angeles Jewish Film Festival. Before we get started, I want to know how many of you was this your first time to the exhibition? Wow! Where are the event people? You have to see this. Well, I'm really impressed and I'm really moved by the fact that you all came out. So thank you. I think it's a really important exhibition.
Thank you for getting us in here.
This week marks the one-year anniversary of the horrific events of October 7th. We reflect on one of the darkest days in recent history and remember the more than 1,200 innocent men, women, and children who were brutally murdered by Hamas terrorists, and the 240 hostages that were taken that day, and the 101 who are still in captivity. It has left an indelible scar on our collective memory and deeply affected communities around the world. That's why it's so moving to see a full theater here tonight, for the community coming together to commemorate October 7th. When I first visited this exhibition, I knew that it was critical to get as many people to come and see it as possible. The film is about a group of young Americans who put their lives on hold to volunteer in Israel in the months following October 7th. They are our hope and our future. The film also touches on their experience facing anti-Semitism on college campuses and from their peer groups during that time. You are the first audience to see this film tonight.
Wow.
We are honored to have, you can clap? Come on. We're honored to have the Emmy Award-winning director, Paul Freedman, and one of the volunteers in the film, Cecily Selden, both here with us tonight to participate in the Q&A following the film.
So you see, this is Paul Freedman.
Writer, director, editor. Cecily, who you recognize from the film. Executive producer.
I was a smart one to hire Paul.
I want to thank you all for bringing to light this film. I mean, it's really so moving and it's so informative, but there's so many layers to it. And just everything from the horrific rants from social media and, you know, reminding us, unfortunately, of what's gone on, what's been building and what just hit a new crescendo after October 7th. But also showing us the other side, going into the kibbutz with your guide who was a survivor, and even going to the Bibas house. You know, everybody has the image of those two babies, you know, ingrained in our hearts forever. So you really brought so much to this, and I want to thank you. And also the stories of these passionate volunteers. So I want to hear about all of this. I want to ask, first I want to start with Bill and with Paul about how this film came about.
So, shortly after October 7th, Birthright came to our office and I was meeting with Elias, their new CEO, and he was telling me about this program. And several of us from our organization were there, and we were very moved by this idea, the idea of people from America, and I think there were some from Europe as well, that actually were going to volunteer. And I felt this was a story a good story that needed to be told with all the sadness that was going around in Israel and here in the United States with the anti-Semitism. So I thought about, let's make a documentary about it. Let's bring this to light. And my first call was to Paul, who I've known since probably about close to 25 plus years now. And Paul is a tremendous filmmaker, so I called Paul and his wife and said, would you be interested, and Natalie, would you let Paul go to Israel and make a film? And without hesitation, Paul said yes, and I'll go leave it to Paul from there.
Yeah, thank you for putting this together. I really appreciate you doing this, and the Nova Festival, and Lauren, and everybody who made this possible. Thanks so much. And thank you for coming from the Tampa airport yesterday. She just got out, so she's evacuated to Culver City. From the time that Bill contacted me, which is probably mid-November, I guess, so it's now like a month has gone by maybe since October 7th. And of course, everybody felt the wound of that day, Jews and non-Jews alike. I'm not Jewish, by the way. And when we started discussing what this story could be, what began occurring to me was what was happening within my group of friends, many of whom are Jewish, my neighbors, many of whom are Jewish. And one very striking thing was one neighbor said, it was getting on towards now Hanukkah season, and she didn't want to put her menorah in the window. And this is, we've lived there, that family and our family have lived in this neighborhood for 25, 30 years. And it began to really strike me as I do social justice work in all different areas of the world. The profound impact that two people said it in the film. Cecily said it once. Things like this bring it to the surface. Josh said it. Anti-Semitism comes up, especially after Jews are murdered. And I thought that was profound. So I began looking at this story. What can I do? Not how can I tell the story, but what can I do? What's my purpose here? And I knew when I got on that plane to go to Israel, my purpose was to call out anti-Semitism. I had to do that. It wasn't incumbent upon my Jewish friend Bill, my Jewish neighbor Brad, all my Jewish. It's not incumbent upon them to call out anti-Semitism. It's incumbent upon me. And so I knew that that was the purpose of this trip, and it was so much of what drove these young people to go do this volunteer work. Almost to a person, they said, yeah, I feel it over there. I feel uncomfortable on the college campus. I feel, I see it on social media. I can't not see it. I'm letting go of friends. And so that really became the North Star of what I was trying to do. And so I credit Bill in sniffing out a great story of volunteerism and hope in the face of profound tragedy. And then I just gave it what I thought would be my personal edge, and I really, I'm so proud of these young people. I gotta tell you, I'm just so proud of them. There's another one here. There you are. What's your first name again?
It's Roxana. Roxana, stand up.
She works for, and she went on the same trip, a different group, about a week later. So the day after. Yeah, the day after. So thank you, Roxana. Anyway, so I know I answered that question in a roundabout way, but Bill had the idea, and I got to really go, and different from other films that I've made in the past. This really was a personal affront to my neighbors, and I had a job to do, and that's what this film is.
Thank you. That's really amazing. Cecily. Yes. So we got to hear a little bit about your impetus of why you went, but talk a little bit more in depth about what really drove you and what was the deciding moment for you.
So I knew pretty quickly what was going on. My birthright trip was about almost a year before, and I'm still really close with every single person that I went with. Our group was very fortunate that we had 6 Israelis on our trip with us. So 2 of them and I became extremely close. We talk almost every single day, and they are currently serving right now. And so hearing their families, talking to them, and feeling that, what can I do from over here? My friends are risking their lives to protect their country. And when the opportunity arose, I was like, that's the only thing I can do. I'm too old to serve in the IDF, unfortunately, so that wasn't an option. And volunteer work has always been a huge part of my family's lifestyle, so it really just kind of felt like the natural choice of, I have time to give, I'm able to give, so I'm going.
Now, how long were you both there? How long was the mission?
We were there from December 11th to the 24th.
So I was there with her group, but I went to London to spend Christmas, but I got COVID on the plane to London, so I was sick in bed in London most of the time. I went back at New Year's to a different group of younger folks. They were college students. They were all college students. Our group was, this group was probably, the youngest was maybe 19, and I think there was maybe a 40-year-old, a couple of 41-year-olds. But the group I met in Jerusalem after the New Year were all kids. They were all in college. And that was also an interesting experience because of that age, you know, and there are first-hand experience on campus. They just left it. They're really fired up, really invigorated. And instead of, I never went on Birthright, obviously, but I hear Birthrights can be fun, it's a party. This just wasn't a party. This was people getting up early, literally getting on the bus, falling asleep on the bus, and going to work. And both groups were exemplary in what they did. I mean, they filled those chili buckets like nothing. It was really amazing. So, I don't know, 2.5 weeks, maybe, 3 weeks total.
That's a quick turnaround.
It's quick, yeah.
So again, a question I'm going to put out to both of you. What were first of all, did you have any fear being there? What was the climate while you were there? Did you anticipate what it would be like going?
I think a couple people said it in the film, and I'll probably repeat it again. It's so weird to say this, but you feel safer when you're there than you do here sometimes. The community is incredible. It's like a giant family. It doesn't matter what area you're in. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Those are my brothers and sisters there that I've never met. There's obviously that back of your mind, hey, I've never been around rockets before. I've never had sirens going off. I think I told you this. I was like, at first it was a little startling to see because everybody just kind of goes about their normal day. You don't see anybody really fazed by the sirens. And you're like, well, what is it? And then you're kind of like, okay, well, I'm just going to follow what you do. And it's weird to say, but yeah, I ended up feeling safer there than I do here sometimes.
Yes, it was unnerving going to the kibbutz because there was shelling under where you could hear it, you could feel the ground shaking. But being in Tel Aviv, I've been in some pretty rough places, and this was not difficult. And you see mothers and children, if they're walking around, they just duck into a bomb shelter, and just follow them. And then if you try to walk out early, someone grabs you, so wait a couple of minutes, something might fall. The piece might fall from the sky. So no, it was not. The Israelis have this Iron Dome, they have it down. They continue to hold strong. The kibbutz, on the other hand, was really it was a ghost town. It was just a ghost town. And Ron, my guy, he put a really great face on it, and he's a spectacular individual, but he was shattered. And yeah, that was hard. I've been in some hard places. That was hard.
How did you connect with your guy, Ron?
He was born there in kibbutz was started in 55 by his father and some others. So he was born there, lived there all his life. So I only cut in a small portion of the homes that he pointed out. I mean, we drove count everybody, Millie was there, Omer was there. So I only put in a few, but he's going down just like I would go down my street. And I have a few neighbors here. Okay, that's Rob's house. He's gone. That's Brad's house. They killed him. That's, Eitan's house. I mean, he was going down the line of everybody that he lived with every day of his life, who had sent his kids to school. I mean, even the lady that was his kindergarten teacher was kidnapped. I mean, and what was so, it was almost robot-like, because he was just, every home he pointed out was something happened. Someone was killed or injured or somehow survived, like he did, from holding the door closed, or was kidnapped. That was what really hard about it, because it was such a small place, a beautiful place, such a tiny little kibbutz. That was really hard seeing Ron have to go through that. I didn't live through that. I didn't live through that terror. He lived through that terror. 8 hours. He and his wife holding the door shut like this. And unlike some of the doors, they never thought to shoot through the door. So God bless him. But I hope Ron's okay. He's a spectacular individual. They're trying to rebuild that kibbutz, but I think his father's still there, but I think only a couple people have returned, and it may not. They just don't have the money to. I don't know if it'll ever come back. I think Kibbutz Beery, I think, is rebuilding. People have come back there, but not near us. Not yet.
Well, thank you for sharing his story and taking us through his home. What was the most challenging for you while you were there?
I think the most challenging part for me was you can feel the grief in the air. And while you're there, you're doing what you can. You offer your shoulder, you do your volunteer work, but there's nothing you can really say or do that will ever take that pain away. That's something only Hashem can do. And I think the hardest part is seeing, specifically for me, was seeing my friends who live there, the brief times I got to see them, the difference between the light that was in their eyes and the hardened kind of soldier's face that they have to put on.
But we all got these sweatshirts, and they said volunteer in Israel in English on the back, and volunteer in Israel in Hebrew on the front, right? How many people came up to you and thanked you?
Hundreds.
Me too. People came up just, thank you for being here, Toda, Toda, thank you for being here. It was amazing, and I'm just walking around with a camera. I mean, that was great.
What are your hopes for this film? What do you want to come out of this film? Where do you want this film to go? Who do you want to see it?
So, again, I want everybody to see it, but I think, again, from my purpose, to call out anti-Semitism, call attention to what happened on October 7th, and to call attention to the volunteerism. I need people people like me need to see this film. That's who needs to see this film. So we're going to try, I'm not sure what our first step is. Maybe Hilary has some ideas. Yeah, so this is our first step, yes. So thanks for being here.
For me, I would really like it if we could get it out to the younger generation. Obviously, if you're online, there's a lot of misinformation that is spread, and it spreads very fast, very easily. And I think something like this, where you can relate to the people you see in it, like I am like any other 30-year-old in America. You know, I live here, I work here, and seeing that, hey, this is something you could do, whether it's to just visit Israel so you can see the truth of what is going on there and see the truth about the people who are there, or whether it's just to take a moment and say, hey, this is what I thought, this kind of made me reconsider, maybe seek out information from both sides of the conflict, just to get a better view of the actual truth of what's going on.
So Hilary, you've asked the golden question here that Paul and I have been talking about for quite some time, and recently a lot with you. Obviously, we would love as many people to see this film as possible. For Paul and I, who've been so involved with this for so long, we have our feelings on it, but we don't know what you all feel. But what you saw, if this is something that other people want to see. And so for us, the first step was screening it here. Hopefully we'll get good feedback. And you know, the hope one day is that this thing could be streamed maybe somewhere where it could be available for everyone. That would be the dream. You know, we're not in it to make money. We're not looking, you know, for financial gain. This is 100% something we're going to offer for free wherever we go, and hope it will be seen by as many people as possible. So if anyone has any contacts at Netflix or any of those places, please let us know.
I had another question. I think you said there's some representative from Birthright here?
Yeah, Margo?
Oh, Margo. Okay. Margo, you can come up and join us. The participants, is this open to young people other than Jewish people?
So our volunteer program, which was mentioned, started on November 13th, it's the same, it's a basic sort of requirements. One Jewish parent and 18 to 40. We thought that we have a much broader age group. For our trips are 18 to 26,
Yeah.
but 18 to 40. But we are looking to do this for Jewish people. It's not free. Birthright Israel, the 10-day trip that Cecily spoke about, is a gift from one generation to the next generation, and the Glazer Foundation is part of the generation that funds it. The volunteer trip, it's subsidized, but it's not free. So people are really like going into their own pocket. It's not easy to get to Israel right now, right? It wasn't then either.
They dug deep, they bought their own plane ticket.
Yeah, they bought their own plane tickets. Were we subsidizing plane tickets at that point? Not yet. Okay, so we've raised some more money since then. We're subsidizing plane tickets now. We supply housing and food, or I guess if you can call it food. My son went on a trip. He said, well, they gave us food, but it's not what I would call food.
A lot of chili peppers.
Yeah, he was working in greenhouses in the South. It's really for young people like Cecily. We've had 7,500 volunteers so far. That's a lot for young Jews from all over the world. 80% of them are Birthright Israel alumni, so they're going back to Israel to roll up their sleeves, get dirty, not sleep. Oh yes, some people have gone back. Unlike a classic Birthright trip, you can go again and again and again, which is really outstanding.
Thank you. You live in Florida. This is your first time here. Okay. Can you talk about your experience of seeing this and meeting some of the Nova survivors while you were there?
One experience I had there I told you guys about this. They have the table out there with all the belongings. They had it set up in Tel Aviv where if you recognize something of your loved ones, you can speak with someone to get it reclaimed. And I had the gut-wrenching moment of seeing a mom find her son's baseball cap, and burned into my brain forever. Well, I still sometimes hear her scream when I close my eyes at night. And so I thought, okay, hey, I've been through the exhibit before. You know, it's very hard, but I think it is very important that we bear witness to what actually happened. And coming through it again, it's nearly the same reaction. Like my friend here said, when we were walking through this time, I felt a little bit angrier. The first time was raw pain. But I think it's important, whether you've seen it before or whether this is your first time, that we are here to bear witness to what actually happened and to make sure that we remember everyone and their memory is our blessing that we get to carry.
There are other organizations that are taking people who are over 40, but about a month ago, maybe a little less, we took our first group of young adults with accessibility issues, so people with special needs, disabled in some way, and they went to Israel and we matched them with jobs that they could do. You could Google it, it was in the Jerusalem Post, but something that we've felt very strongly about since the very beginning of Birthright Israel is that we don't just take able-bodied people to Israel on our trips, that it's open to those of us in the community who have certain special needs, be it physical, emotional. Any way that we can take a young Jew to Israel will make a trip happen for them. That's part and parcel of who we are as a community.
Also, I wasn't conflicted at all. Whether it's right wing, left wing, no wing, anti-Semitism to me is anti-Semitism. And I think that I put the Unite the Right march in there because it had a profound effect on that interview subject at the time, and she was talking about that. She said, you know, when Charlottesville happened, I felt like I had to crawl inside myself, and now here it is again. And so there was a very purposeful decision to put that in. The Centers for Digital Hate, Center for Digital Hate, they provided me links to some of this online, yes, maybe could be coming from right-wing people, but to a person. Everybody I talked to said they had been affected to some degree by anti-Semitic social media, because all these young people are on social media. They can't get away from it. So, so I think that it's a key part of the film that I needed a razor blade in there. I needed it to make a sharp cut, and that was the decision. That's why I put that in there.
And I will add that Paul and I had discussions, and it was very important to us not to make this a political statement. We wanted to focus on the volunteers, anti-Semitism, and what happened in Israel.
in counting all these amazing volunteerings in Israel and also out abroad is so giving me hope, because I see all this goodness. And in all the healing centers, you have these amazing people that are doing this with volunteering, if it's psychologists, if it's therapists with arts and many other fields, if it's people that made us food for every day in those places, if it's people that help us with the authorities. So I met a lot of amazing people during the way, and one of the best things about those communities gathering is the actual chance to look at people that experience the same thing that I had, and even I had a couple of encounters that I had pieces of my puzzles that were restored, right? With people that I met over there and realized that we had a minute together that day, or 10 minutes together that day, and it's amazing that we have those places for. One of my ways to recover, one of my go-to meditation, I don't remember if I talk about it, is music. I play the guitar, and it gives me a lot of joy. And in one of the programs that were established, I learned that I can sing this year, and it brings me joy also as well. And one of other things that I do at this time is talking about it, as I do right now, because I truly believe that by talking about it, we can, by talking about it, first of all, the act of talking itself released something, right? And we can refer to the small stuff in life. For example, if you split your coffee on your shirt this morning and you hold it up in your stomach for the rest of the day, you probably will have a bad day. But if you talked about it this morning to your family, to your friends, you will transmit your day to a better one. So I encourage you guys to talk about things in life, not only the bad and not only the worstest, about everything. And the second thing is that we have to let people know what truly happened. And by doing so, I believe somehow we, in this duty, we guarantee, or we try to guarantee that this thing won't happen again, ever, no matter where. You have to understand that we encountered everything that's unhuman in the most human environment there is. I don't want it to happen ever again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and for being here. This is really important for all of us, and we really appreciate you sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I want to thank everybody for coming. If you have any other questions for these people, feel free to come up and ask them. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so
Thank
much for
you all.
coming out and staying. Thank you, thank you, thank you.